Hi and welcome to an exciting launch as we launch Sheikhy's Rugby show. First and foremost, I'm going to put this on record to say that I don't claim to be a specialist in rugby. As an ex-Scottish cricket internationalist, it's certainly not my forte, but I do have a keen interest in the sport. But my co-host, Mr. Flanners, a little bit more of a rugby background.
Mate, I remember Adam Roxburgh telling me when I was 16, Flannigan, you're going to be good at some sport which has got to do with balls and hand-eye coordination. And I fancied myself as a player actually when I was 16. Played a little bit for the Harlequins, and to be honest, I remember playing against Hoyk and Stuart Hogg running through me when I was 17 under lights at Poynter Park, and I went and tackled him high, and I've never played rugby again since. So. We've got obviously Fordy was the most capped Scottish player, Roger Baird, we've had Jim Telfer, and we've had a few boys back in the day, being Jim Jeffrey, not Jim Telfer, get your facts right, Ryan. Kelso's produced a few players, mate, but rugby, listen, I've always enjoyed it and watched it, but these two lads here with us today will give us a good insight into it. But obviously what a great result to come off the back that last weekend. So we get some good talking points, hopefully.
Definitely. Very interesting, man. Interesting. You wouldn't think such a small place would produce so much sporting talent. You being one of them, Ryan. Especially quality cricketer. Moving into the specialists then. So now that we've got out of the way that the two of us are not that knowledgeable in rugby, we're okay. That's why I brought in the specialists. I'm very privileged to be joined by two Scottish international rugby players. I'll start by introducing Ruaridh Jackson. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate. Good. Surviving. And actually, my cousin has been playing for Kelso quite recently. They're both Melrosians, but he ventured over and he's played a few seasons at Kelso. So I've got a wee family connection there now as well. So it's.
Nice. You're rocking a new look, mate. I'm used to seeing the tash and the beard. And what's the story?
New job. I've got to look a bit smarter now dealing with clients. I just like keeping things interesting. I think since I've joined my new job at Glenturret, every time I go up, because I've only been up sporadically because of COVID, and the guys seem to they need a few double takes to actually realize who it is, because I've changed my look every time I've gone up. But
you've knocked a few years off, mate. I'm telling you. I thought there might be a modelling contract or something on the horizon. You're looking suave. But great to have you with us. And then, last but not least, also Scottish internationalist. Living currently in some warmer climates than the rest of us. I welcome Adam Ashe to the show. How you doing, big man?
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. No, I'm sure you'll see that I'm. Oh, fuck. Sorry, as the signal went.
No, you're there. You're still recovering from your dip. You're still recovering from your dip. I think you're still just waking up. But yes, continue.
Yeah, I got a bit of shock after jumping in that extremely warm sea. An ice bath normally you would get a shock from, but nah, it's. I'm good. I'm in Hawaii. You see, I'm sitting outside at the moment. Obviously, not back home in the 5 inches of snow or whatever it is that you guys have. But I've been on a bit of a journey the last 3 or 4 weeks trying to get myself over to the US for my new contract in Los Angeles. So I hope you guys aren't too jealous of me sitting in the heat just now. But no, it's good to be joining you. It's currently 8:08 in the morning here, so 10 hours behind, but we'll make it happen.
Well, I just want to say this, like, we were chatting over message couple of weeks back, and you had said to me, couldn't you get the visa sorted in London? It was really difficult. It was taking time. So I mean, they've flown us out to Bermuda for 10 days. So I'm in Bermuda for 10 days, and I was thinking, you bloody cheeky bugger, 10 days in Bermuda. But you seen some action in Bermuda. You went through a tornado, hurricane, or something?
We were expecting to get ourselves out there and for the weather to be pretty decent, but it turns out that they do get a bit of rubbish coming through in sort of January and February. So we had 2 tropical storms when we were out there. I mean, it weren't as bad as hurricanes, but they were still like 80, 90 mile an hour winds. And obviously when you're right next to the coast, it feels as if your hotel room window is going to come in. So it was pretty exciting, but we didn't actually get, this will sort of ease the jealousy a little bit, but we didn't get too much good weather in Bermuda. But then we went to LA for a while, done a quarantine there, and then we're now in Hawaii, where it's bloody lovely, man. It's really nice out here. So we managed to get the visa sorted to Bermuda. That basically involved us being over there for 2 weeks, because the US embassy in the UK is really slow at the moment, just because it's all blocked up and there's appointments that have been delayed and stuff. So that was the reason for going to Bermuda. And now we're here. We're cracking into it. This is a third day of pre-season training camp in Hawaii. So we're here for 4 weeks.
All the heads are shaking. All the heads are shaking. Listen, also big congratulations.
Sorry.
Big congratulations. Recently married. How's married life treating you?
It's good. It's been pretty fast and a lot of things happening. We wanted to get married before we headed out here. Again, it all kind of comes down to the visa stuff, but I'm glad to get it finally done. It was a long time coming. We'd been engaged for over 3 years, and it's nice. At least it's actually back in LA at the moment, so the girl stayed back there. So lads only on this tour. So she's enjoying herself back there, I'm sure, getting out and about. I think she was down at Manhattan Beach the other day and trying to just get to know the place, and then I think she'll be trying to look for a place for us to live. So she's busy, but we'll be apart for the next kind of month or so, but looking forward to getting back to LA and getting settled in.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Well, look, we'll be following your journey closely out there, and wish you all the best, even if we're slightly jealous. So let's get into it then, lads. Start with you, Ruaridh. Great weekend. Scotland away on English soil, 38 years. Great victory.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was a crying shame that there's no fans and no pubs open that we could actually go out and celebrate. There's been a lot of jumping around in houses, just as families and couples and stuff, I'm sure. And I've heard a few people saying they're going to wait until things open up and they're going to throw some parties and rewatch it and and claim that it's happening live and celebrate then. But no, it was awesome, and it was like I wouldn't say it's a dampener, but like the only thing you could really say is that should have probably beaten them by more points. They comprehensively outplayed them, from like set piece to broken field play to kicking management. So Finn and Hoggy kept pinning them back. I'd say the only success and threat that they had was at the start when they got a couple of charge downs on Pricey at scrum half, and that was the only time that they looked semi-threatening, and it was just really satisfying to watch us dominate an English team down on English soil. Did you go into it with expectations that you thought we could do it? I definitely think the team thereabouts, it looks on paper and the way they've sort of been building are definitely able to challenge more. I think the one worry is that you think that England might be able to just batter their way through and just bludgeon their way to victory, but I think the pack now, and you look at the front row, especially with not just the starting guys, but bringing off the bench like Ollie Kebble and VP Nell, who are two great scrummagers, and it just it means after 60 minutes or something you can bring on some fresh, powerful legs that will just keep that English battering ram at bay, and I'd say we almost got the edge on it, or we definitely did get the edge on it, and so it was nice to see that we weren't overpowered, and I think that definitely puts us in a good place moving forward. Again, like the Welsh are another physical team, and we've shown that we can stand up and more than hold our own. So there's definitely the makings there for something good this tournament. You never, as a Scotsman, want to speak too soon, because that hype train can come flying off the rails. But it's I think there's a lot of excitement, and quite rightly so for a long time coming.
Ruaridh, I was going to ask, and obviously being a number 10 mate yourself, I thought I seen a level. I know Finn Russell, he certainly struts around, doesn't he? And he shows a level of arrogance. But I thought, that must have been a massive game for him, being left out of the team. Back obviously by Gregor at the back end of the last tournament, to come back in. I thought he just dictated the play. He looked incredible. He had a big difference, didn't he, in the game?
Massive. Like, he's without doubt one of the best players in the world. He's got the full armory from passing to running to kicking, and running in the. I think because he's got such amazing flair and can do incredible things, he'll get, and because he does look a bit swaggerish and sometimes like he's just out on a park just having a kick around with mates, and it's just like people question his management of the game and how he can control and dictate things, and I think he just showed the world that he's got it all, and he can do that. He put in an absolute masterclass.
His vision was incredible. His vision's unreal, isn't it? Just the way he reads the game. Number 10 is, I think, one of the most important, position in the park. But the way he dictated the game was incredible, and I thought, was it Van der Merwe on the wing was outstanding as well. But Hamish Watson, I was watching Hamish Watson up front. He's a hard boy, like, because these English lads are not small. When they were going hard, they were coming hard, and that's one thing. The first time I have to admit, and I mentioned to you boys, the Scottish nation, we've always been a bunch to sort of fold over quite easily in the past, haven't we, when it comes to a lot of sports. But they got battered on Saturday, but they stood up to it, and I thought they outplayed them. I really did. It was incredible to watch at times.
Ashe,
No,
you're obviously a big you're big pals with Finn. You're close. Is he going to be the future for the next couple of years now, moving forward? I mean, guy's clearly got a lot of natural ability.
Oh, he's always had it, Finn. Talking about his vision there, like, he's always been a guy that's had phenomenal hand-eye coordination. Like, whether it's him playing badminton, he's a good golfer. He has that ability to just sort of turn it on. I think one of the big things for me out of the game on the weekend is that, obviously, probably out of the last 3 years, Finn's had a couple of really big performances against England. He sort of turned that game around. I think it was in 2018, when it was sort of 38 all draw. And then on the weekend, obviously, another good performance. And in the lead up to a game where we're obviously, the players are in contention for line selection this year. And, you look at, the past probably couple of Lions tours, Finn made it out onto the last one eventually. But I think Scottish players have probably been overlooked over the last, probably for a long time now. And I think what we can take out of that game of the weekend is hopefully a lot of hope that we're going to see more Scottish players feature in the summer, after certainly two good performances in the last few years against England. So yeah, he's just he's an exceptionally talented guy. But I think one of the things that has really sort of come out and is sort of pertinent to me is the fact that probably in the last 2 or 3 years, his work ethic is sort of the way that he looks at games, the way that he analyses the opposition. He spends a lot of time during the week and build up to games looking at where there might be opportunities. Is there an opportunity to put a kick in or to manipulate a defender? It's something that he speaks about a lot. I've listened to, obviously been friends with him and listening to him sort of do interviews and stuff. It's something that he puts a lot of emphasis on. And I think as he's got older, has sort of grown and been a big part of his career. So yeah, what a player. And yeah, there's no doubt about it. If him and Gregor can continue to see eye to eye, and by all means, my understanding is that they are getting on well now, and they've moved through that rough patch. Finn's, he's going to be in that position for a long time now for Scotland.
Sorry to prod here, but I don't know the background. Have they had a bit of a lover's tiff?
Yeah, so there was an issue. It must have been about a year ago now. I can't remember exactly when, but I think there was an incident in camp where I think Finn had a few beers, and Gregor wasn't happy about it, and Finn had wanted to sort of, I think, confront him a little bit because he wasn't happy with the way that things were being ran in camp, and he felt like his freedom was being thwarted a little bit. And that sort of culminated in a difficult conversation in which I think Gregor had said to Finn that he wanted Finn to go home from camp. And Finn, being the way that he is, he's his own man. He's a proud guy. He was like, well, fine, don't want me there, I won't be there. And he went back to France and played his rugby there. So that happened. And obviously they went through a bit of a rocky period. You know, I think a lot of Scotland supporters were extremely upset that Finn wasn't involved in Scotland games for a while. I know Finn was upset. He wanted to be playing, but, you know, I think the two of them were sort of working through these issues. But now we're at a point where, you know, from speaking to Finn, that they're getting on very well. You know, they're two guys who are very much set in their own ways and pretty strong-minded. And I think you have to be obviously the kind of coach that Townsend is, the way that he played the game, and also to be the kind of player that Finn is. You know, you have to be extremely confident in how you go about things and be sure about yourself. So I just think there was a bit of a clash there, but, you know, it seems like things are good now.
Ruaridh, how important do you think Gregor Townsend now is? You know, we've started well. As you've said, we never like to get too far ahead of ourselves as Scotsmen. Big game coming up on Saturday against the Welsh. What do you think Gregor would have said to them? How do you keep a bunch of guys calm and focused on the next game when you've just beaten England?
It's a tough one. It's I think it's probably one good thing is the fact that you definitely can't go out and celebrate at the minute. So it's there's certainly no risk. There's certainly no risk of hangovers coming into this weekend. So yeah, they'll have got back, and I think one of the great things, as Ashe has alluded to, is that the fact that we've actually got a lot of players that are putting their hands up for Lions selection later on in the year if that does go ahead. So there's always that little caveat in the background that you're never going to sort of slip up in terms of the way. Not that you really should anyway, but like you're going to be on it like 110%. You're going to be focused. You're going to be looking at ways to make sure you're putting yourself in the best possible position for that, and that the easiest way for that is to be playing in a winning team. And we've got off to a great start. We've got momentum. I think Gregor's whole message this week will just be to be building on that. I think he's slowly starting to find a balance in the game that suits Scotland. I think when he came in, he was all about this, we want to play the quickest rugby in the world. And that is a really good mindset to have when you're attacking and things like that. But sometimes, especially at international rugby, you can end up running up your own arse a little bit, and defenses are so good that the teams are so good that they capitalize on any mistake. So it's really high risk. And so when it's good, it's great, but when it's not, it's easy to come unstuck. And then he almost went too negative and started just kicking everything, and that just doesn't suit Scotland necessarily in terms of our kick chase and defence. And teams were probably more suited to it. The likes of Ireland are very good at it, England, but I think we've now found a balance where it's sort of, we are kicking still quite a lot, but it's on our terms. They're looking to manipulate. It's maybe Finn coming around the corner and putting in a cheeky kick, or using Hoggy with his cannon and spiral kicks and stuff like that, and little other sort of cross-field kicks, and how you can look to retain the ball. So it's that balance where it's not always just kicking for the sake of kicking. There's a reason, there's a purpose, and quite often it will end up in us getting the ball back or putting pressure on teams. So I think there's a nice balance there now. I think Wales are going through a transitional period, so I think there's a real good opportunity to make it 2 from 2, and put ourselves in a really good position that sometimes we don't normally put ourselves in the Six Nations. So it's exciting.
Ruaridh and Adam, I take it you both played, or sorry, did you play under Gregor? Yeah, both of you should be experienced his leadership, both of you.
Yeah. Like I had him. I've done a lot of work with him in the past. He was Scotland's back coach when I was sort of breaking onto the scene, so I did a lot of work with him. He was kind of a mentor for me, and then he became head coach at Glasgow. And like the way he sees the game and the way he wants to approach the game, he certainly naturally, and the way he played it, he was naturally suited to that attacking style. So I think he almost got too, surrounded in stats and things to what it was to be a success or a winning team in international rugby. And I think he kind of lost his identity, but I think he's shifting back now, and the SU have thankfully allowed him time. So I think he's growing into the role. He's getting better at that man management side of things, where obviously butted heads with Finn a little bit, but they've come together and they seem to grown out of it as well. They both improved, and as long as you can keep that improvement and growth sort of mentality, then there's no problem having the odd failure, because that's where you learn the most. And it seems like they're using those failures to actually learn and implement things going forward.
What are you looking at, big lad? You're pointing up in the sky and all that. What have you seen?
I've never sat out here before. I'm sitting outside my room, but I've just seen this massive spider, and I'm like, I'll just keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't come anywhere near me. It looks like it might be poisonous, so if I move, then you know why.
You understand? I'll keep an eye on that, mate. Keep an eye on that. Look, something I just want to touch on before we go on to look at the upcoming fixtures is there was a lot of controversy, which was unfortunate a little bit after such a fantastic win. But there was two images that were kind of making their way over all the social media. Obviously, we've got this BLM Black Lives Matter movement that's been very, very visual, been really clear in the football world, for instance. All the teams have been doing it. And this was the first time that I think rugby with a tournament like Six Nations had done it. And it just didn't look great. And from a spectator's point of view, that, for instance, 3/4 of the English team took a knee, a quarter of them didn't. 3/4 of the Scottish boys didn't take a knee, and a quarter did. It would have made sense almost. I think it almost made the guys that didn't take a knee look bad. So I wanted to just get an input from you two guys and what your thoughts. We'll go to you first, Ashe. Just keep an eye on the spider. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's obviously a touchy subject, and there's definitely no straightforward answer to it. So what I would say is that based off what happens there in terms of who takes a knee and who doesn't, I don't think it's I wouldn't be judging somebody I wouldn't be judging somebody's character based off that. I think that there's a lot of things that come into these matters, in terms of the two groups that you mentioned there. There are certainly, I think, affiliations, certain groups that follow these groups that people probably don't want to be affiliated with. And I think Jacko would say the same. We know a lot of these guys that are obviously standing there and not taking a knee, and we know that, we know they're completely good guys and would never be involved in anything remotely racist. So I think, there's so many different things that come into it. And for me, it's not that they don't support these things. It's just that, they maybe don't want to do it because there are other affiliations, and it's not black and white, excuse the pun, in terms of what these groups are all about. So that's what I would say. It's not something that I don't feel like I'm somebody who could comment much on it, because I don't know much about either or of the kind of groups. So I've not got much to add on it, but Jacko might have some stuff.
I don't have too much more to add to that. I don't think. I know Billy Vunipola, he's not kneeled a couple of times now when it's come to it, and his reasoning was religious reasons for it, and again, because it was linked to the political movement, the more sinister one with the Black Lives Matter, that there was a lot of looting and Bibles getting burnt, and there's some pretty bad stuff going on, and that's certainly not where the sort of the crux of the Black Lives Matter movement did come from, and certainly not something that is in line with the proper messaging that should be coming out of it. And I think when you look, I think there was a bit of, I saw Ali Price actually had a bit of a statement about it as well, and I just think there might have been a little bit of confusion within the ranks of exactly what was meant to be going on. I don't think anyone's told them necessarily, okay, we're doing this sort of minute.
I was going to say that, Ruaridh. I think there needs to be some form of leadership and ownership from either the SRU or the governing bodies of these guys to say, listen, this is what we're actually doing, or we're not doing. You put the players in a very difficult position there. I think the more senior people. Yeah,
I think so, because I think there's something I read somewhere that was something like, I think the statement, the messaging is stand up to racism. So this could be a really simplistic view of things, but some people might be like, well, stand up to racism. I'm going to it's standing up. It doesn't say kneel.
Yeah.
It's just and it could be like, and you like as a player, like about to play one of the biggest test matches of your career, so much stuff's going through your head, and if you don't have guidance on it, and it's like without taking away freedom of speech or thought or just becoming robots, if there was some sort of guidance on it, it's like, right guys, we're doing this, the message to stand up or to kneel, you've obviously got a choice, but the aim is to show a support of the movement, and we're making a place that rugby is inclusive, and because there's not certainly, out of all the guys I know, there's not a racist bone in those guys, and it's just but it does give confused messaging to the people watching, and it gives fuel to certain things as well, and it's so it's an intricate matter that I think has not been handled the best, and it'll be interesting to see what happens moving on in the Six Nations.
Well, I mean, just that's been a talking point, but then what that's done is it's raised other talking points. One of them being that, why do we not see more people from an Asian background or other backgrounds playing rugby? Now, I'll put this on record first and foremost and say that, listen, growing up, football, yep, cricket, yep, some guy running through me and trying to take my head off or knock me over the touch, I just a bit, like I said at the start, a bit of touch rugby's all right, but I just was no interested in what you boys chose to do as your careers. It wasn't for me, and I think that might be the mindset of a lot of other fellow Asian people from that background. What do you think, Ashe? I mean, growing up, have you come across many people from an ethnic background that have played rugby? Do you see many around the clubs? What do you think? Why do you think it doesn't? Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think probably in the UK, like rugby's probably been a sport that's sort of been traditionally played by white people. Like it's just kind of the way that it always has been. But interestingly, from playing rugby in other countries, like I remember going to New Zealand, played out there for 4 months when I was 20 years old, and it's very different out there. Rugby's very much part of the culture, and it is in Scotland, but there's a different degree out there, and you have all sorts of people involved in rugby out there, all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different skin colours and all this. So I think it's just probably a little bit of tradition in here, but it's fantastic to see that these things are starting to be broken down. Even if you look at Glasgow Warriors, we've got big Kieran McDonald. He's got a bit of Indian, I think, in him. So he's enormous as well, by the way. He's like 6'6" and 120 kilos. So he ain't a small guy. But I think for me, the reason that I probably got into rugby was probably just because, like, probably opposite to you, I was a bit bigger than everyone else, so it was quite fun because I had an advantage. But yeah, I don't know. I think that as rugby grows and as the popularity grows in the UK, we'll start to see people from different ethnicities and different backgrounds come into the sport. And I think it's probably more a reflection of where the sport's at rather than the inclusivity of the sport. If you look at football, for example, everybody's involved in football, like all sorts of different people. So it's probably just a matter of sort of where the sport's come from. And I think these things are starting to change, and as rugby's grown, more people are getting involved.
Yeah, that's it. Couple of things. I think I guess it's how things are portrayed in different countries and communities a little bit, because this might just sound absolutely ridiculous, but like, have you ever seen this ridiculous video? I don't know if it was a movie or what that was made. It was like a Bollywood movie of rugby, and if you've not seen it, like YouTube Bollywood rugby or something like that, and it is just like it's violent. It's just like they've made it like you will get murdered if you play rugby, pretty much. And it's just like like it's just, so I just think, like, for these sort of countries, it's just not accessible, or it's just not seen properly on TVs. I imagine, like, if you thinking of like India, Pakistan, like all these sort of places, like I imagine, like I obviously don't know from experience, but I imagine majority of it will be sort of like cricket,
I've
football.
never seen in my life a rugby ball in Pakistan.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Plenty. I've never seen a
I
rugby
was
ball.
going to say, Sheikhy, have you got any mates that ever played rugby?
Honestly, you know, when I've actually started thinking about it this week, I don't know. I don't know of any fellow Asian mates.
It comes back to the parents, doesn't it? It comes back to what you're growing up watching, like Indians, Sri Lankans, Pakistanis. It's all cricket. That's what it is, and it's like a religion for some of these people. Whereas if you're born in Kelso, like myself, it's rugby, isn't it?
Rugby or football. Rugby or football. Let's be honest. In Scotland, it's one or the other. Surprisingly, but then in the cricketing front, the Asians have got so much influence in Scottish cricket. You go to any cricket club, for instance, a cricket club that I come from, Clydesdale Cricket Club. You go into the ground, you'll probably see 70 to 75% Asian kids, 25% white kids. So I don't think I think it's been sad this week because I think a fantastic victory has the media has kind of tried to push more towards making rugby come across completely as a racist sport, and I'm talking to you two, both Scottish internationalists. It's clearly not the case, but there's maybe barriers that need to there needs to be ways to look at trying to include other groups of people involved in the sport, and I think Scotland winning the Six Nations in 2021 would be a great way for people to go, whoa, this is an interesting sport. Let's get involved in that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'd say so I played down at Harlequins down in London, and they've linked up with they've got a guy who runs a charity, and they quite often send out players that will be in their off season, so in the summer, and they go out to India, and they run kids camps in India. And I guess that's obviously further afield. That's I think the sort of guess what you're more talking about is sort of within local communities, getting out to these communities and trying to include them. But it's interesting to see the sort of speaking to the guys that have been out to India to do stuff, and there is probably a bit of an appetite for it, and it's just something that is when you get taught it properly, and it's such a great game because it should be an inclusive game. It's a game that's sort of all about camaraderie, sort of everything. Every good point that comes out of team sport is pitched in rugby, I think, and it's just such a wonderful sport. Even if no matter what level you play at, I think there's so many positives that come out of it. So it'd be great to definitely get more different communities involved in playing, because it's just a great sport, I think.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It was really interesting to hear both of you speak on that subject. I think a lot of people listening will maybe get a bit of a different view on things. Both of you, like I said, these two guys on screen have played with pretty much all of these boys that were playing at the weekend, and it's clear to see that there's no racist body in any of them. And to be fair, when you're looking at the picture, you could tell that a few of them looked confused. It wasn't like it was right, lads, we're doing this, as Flanners was saying. It didn't look clear cut. The other 4 or 5 boys that did it, they were obviously, it was in the back of their mind that we're going to do this. But a couple of the other boys were kind of just looking, and they looked a bit bewildered by it all. So there's obviously a lot more to it, and I think we shouldn't label these guys like that whatsoever. It's very judgmental, and it's the wrong way to go about it. So let's get back to some more positive things. Saturday, we're playing the Welsh. Are we going to turn the Welsh over, or is this going to be one weekend of great buzz and then, oh no, back to same old Scotland?
I'm pretty confident. I think I sort of alluded to it briefly that Wales are in a bit of a transition. They've got new coaching. They've not got a settled squad. They actually had a few injuries. They did beat the Irish at the weekend, but Ireland were down to 14 men for a large part of that and still had a chance to win towards the end. So certainly no fear there, I don't think. Although sometimes a little bit of fear is a good thing. It keeps you on edge and focused. But I think it's ours to lose, put it that way. That's how I feel.
That's a big call, actually, because I thought the Welsh are a pretty strong unit usually in general. No, I think the French, but Ruaridh, I don't know, Adam, you've seen the highlights, but the French looked frightening as well. I thought they looked favourites to me.
Yeah, I think I watched the French game, and I thought they looked like jouet. You know, like they played some exciting rugby. They were throwing the ball about. They were, they just looked extremely. You know, when things just come off. Yeah, the French are obviously known for the way that they play the game. They like to throw the ball about. They like to express themselves. But it seemed like the game on the weekend there was just one of those games where things were coming off. And if they can play consistently like that through the tournament, then they're going to be a big threat. My interpretation of how the game's going to go this weekend is that I think that Scotland will be favourites to win the game. The last time we played Wales, we beat them. They are, as Jacko said, that they're coming off the back of a slump. You know, they've been struggling. They played Ireland on the weekend, who are a tough team. You know, when they go down to 14 players, very difficult to win an international rugby game. So I'm really impressed with the way that the Scotland team's looking at the moment. I think that there are certain areas of the team that are exceptionally strong and could compete with the best teams in the world. I think I was really impressed with, and I have been impressed with how the back row's been looking over the last year. You know, I think that we're at a point where Matt Fagerson has to be playing 8 consistently for Scotland. Like I think he should have been for a long time, but he hasn't been. There's been a bit of chopping and changing, and you know, different players coming in and out. You know, you've got that. Certainly at 6, you've got Jamie Ritchie, who's, you know, he's playing exceptionally well at the moment, and you've got Hamish, who's like, I don't know what the hell Edinburgh have done to keep Hamish Watson there for another few seasons, but by God, that guy is on fire at the moment, and I think, you know, he would have had a lot of interest from other clubs. So the back row, really impressed with them, and I think that they're playing really, really well and a strong unit, and I think to have Finn back in the squad is just going to provide the squad with a lot of confidence. So I've got high hopes, but at the same time, I do agree with what you guys are saying. You know, us Scots can, you know, one win, we can tend to get a little bit ahead of ourselves. But, you know, I'm quietly confident that I think this weekend's game is going to go in our favour.
Right, so we knock over the Welsh at the weekend, and then we go into the biggest game of biggest game of the tournament against the French. It's going to be and it's away. Not that away matters that much currently, because you're not playing in front of a big crowd, not playing in front of any crowd. If you get over that, if the chances of beating them over there, do you think we can do it?
Definitely got a chance. I think if we win this weekend, especially, the French they're looking like the team to beat. I thought they were the team to beat last year, and thankfully Scotland managed to ruin their Grand Slam hopes. But unfortunately, that led to England winning the Six Nations. But they're just incredible, and they should have been incredible for the last decade. I don't know whether it's just new coaching teams really found a way to make them sing, because they've always got a massive pack. They've always got incredible backs, but they just seem to just be very French at times and just don't turn up.
You almost think I would compare it, Ruaridh, as like the same version of Pakistan at cricket. Are they a bit like that on their day they can beat anybody in the world, but they can also look terrible on another day? Yeah,
exactly. No, it's a good way to look at it, and it is. It's just, you just wonder it must just be a mentality thing, and it's so whether hopefully their coach for them has really sort of drilled in a sort of culture and a mentality that is just getting them more consistent and becoming more ruthless, whilst keeping the sort of natural joys of their game that it's just so good to watch. I mean, hopefully for us, they have a little slump in the middle of the tournament, but yeah, it should be a cracking game. I think it's two teams that are well balanced, playing really good rugby, and it could be a cracking game, I think.
Ruaridh, can I ask a question, and Adam as well? Have you guys played at Twickenham, both of you?
I have, yeah.
It was something that I'm speaking to a few people about, and I mentioned to you lads in the group chat earlier, was, you know, that atmosphere at Twickenham must be quite electrifying, I suppose, but is it intimidating as well? And I wanted to touch on that. Sheikhy mentioned going to France, you know, it won't be that much a difference because there's no crowd, and you can see it with the results in the football games as well. The away teams are winning games. Do you think that had a big difference on Saturday? And what's it like to play at Twickenham in front of that English crowd?
Yeah, no, I think that it will have its impact. You know, playing at Twickenham is difficult, man. There's no doubt about it. You know, when England are playing well and the crowd get behind them, it's a huge stadium. There's, you know, I played sevens there. I've played for Scotland in 15s there. It's a cracking place to play rugby. But I definitely think that the fact that crowds are not at games will make a difference. And, you know, I think it's a little bit different for Scotland going to France, because I think when you look at French teams in general, they often on the road don't perform as well. And I think for them, say for instance, if they were coming up to Scotland to play us here, you know, I think potentially us not having a crowd here might make more of a difference to them than it would for us. But I think that the way that Gregor Townsend approaches sort of the game and the mental side of things, will be trying to cover all bases, and we'll be trying to help assist the players through the sort of differences that we're seeing, you know, playing away games and having no crowds there, and things that you can do to sort of really sort of emphasize, you know, maybe what that effect has for you if crowds are there, you know, and things that you can do to sort of make up for it. So I don't think that it'll make much of a difference for Scotland, but, you know, potentially for the French teams, it could play a part in things. So hopefully it's going to be an advantage for us. But yeah, it's certainly a cool place to play, Twickenham, and, you know, might get to play there again, but who knows.
So we beat the French and we move into the next game, which is a home fixture against the Irish. Surely we're in the home straight by this point. This is all probably going to come back to bite me in the arse, I can tell. But Irish at home, listen, it's never an easy game playing the Irish. They're tough bunch. Hello, how we doing? They're a tough bunch of the Irish. But what do you fancy us in that fixture as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's certainly not a game this year, I think, that sort of should scare you. I think Ireland are getting a bit of a funny one. They're obviously a cracking team.
Sheikhy, you're getting ahead of yourself here. You're asking these boys about all these wins we're going to have, and
listen, we just beat England, mate. I'm being typical Scottish right now, mate, and I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm looking at the trophy now.
These lads have not got crystal balls here, right? Listen, at the end of the day, let's just get the Welsh beat on Saturday, and then we'll take it from here, right? Step by step. You know, you're asking Ruaridh and Adam to talk about.
We need to discuss these fixtures, because this we're only doing an episode a month, so I want to get their input. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm visualizing this right now, that we're winning each game, so I'm using that.
Sheikhy, I'm visualizing you playing touch rugby, mate. That's what I'm
be a sight to behold.
Let's talk about club rugby, lads. How hard is it for boys at the moment? Like, there's no club rugby, in terms of a lower level when it comes to Scotland. I know obviously Glasgow and Edinburgh are playing, but I heard someone complaining about some of the English lads were quite underprepared as well. Was that Saracens or something like that they mentioned? Is that quite a big effect on these lads as well?
I think it will have had an effect. I think so. Saracens, obviously, they for anyone that was unaware, they got relegated last year because of a salary cap breach. So they'd been screwing the system for a while to get the best squad, and that's why they kept knocking us out the European Cup when we were at Glasgow. So they've been knocked down. They got relegated, and they've sort of gone with the route of they're not going to play any of their stars in the Championship because they think they'll just romp it anyway. So they're just giving their stars a chance to rest, but sort of came back to kick them in the backside a little bit, because I think they were a bit rusty and unprepared. It just shows you that leap into international rugby. You really need to be match fit, match ready, and they weren't. So it's definitely, I think that hindered them a little bit. In terms of club rugby in Scotland, I think is a real shame. I think like I coach a local. Ashe was before he started jet setting to America and Hawaii. We were coaching at a local club just around the corner, Glasgow Ackies, and it's been brutal. And like these poor guys for months up until sort of Christmas time, they were knocking their pan in, training, coming out in crap weather, just waiting for that sort of carrot on the stick to say when we're going to be allowed to play rugby again, because they do it for fun. It's not like guys that like pros, they get paid. It's maybe pretty crap at the minute. There's no fans, but they're still getting paid. They're still getting to do what they love. Whereas these club guys, where it's a release, it's the thing they look forward to, the weekends, and it's just like there's nothing. It's just it's a real shame for these guys, and so they're missing that camaraderie, sort of down the club on a Saturday, playing a game, and then enjoying a few pints. And
Ruaridh, did they not set up a new sort of rugby system in Scotland, where there were, was there not like a team in South or down the South or got together, or Melrose joined certain players? How was there not some new structure they were implementing soon?
Yeah, so I mean that was I think that might have been the Super Six. So it was like they tried to create this semi-pro. So it's like you've got the pros and then the semi-pro and then the amateur stuff. So there's more of a pathway into the pro setup. So they had sort of 6 teams. So there's like a Borders team, a couple of teams in Edinburgh.
That's not happened, is it? It's been completely wiped out.
It's been wiped this year. I don't know whether it's going to come back. I don't know what the crack is with that.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a shame.
Hey guys, I was the first professional player in Scotland to make a debut in the Super Six competition. But the thing is, like, it's a good competition. I think it's going to be good for young players, but what we've seen in Scotland is that a lot of the more experienced club players that were playing in the Premiership, which was the setup that they had before, have now left to go and play at lower league clubs, because they've put there's budgets in place for each team, and it basically means that players can only get paid a certain amount of money per game, or if it's a fee or if it's a contract that they're on. So I think that the level is actually not as good as the Premiership, and there's not much between it. Like it's not like it's dropped considerably, but I think it's probably going to take 3 or 4 years to sort of develop this league and to get it up to speed. I think one of the good things is that we're seeing it's opened up an opportunity for overseas players to come in, who might then become qualified for Scotland, or potentially it's somebody who's been overseas, who's got a Scottish parent who's living in Australia, might want to come and play rugby here. But because it's a slightly more professional setup, these people are being attracted. So there's that upside to it, but it's I don't know when it's going to start back up, but hopefully soon, because I think the only upside to the current situation, for rugby fans and players, is at least the professional games on at the moment. The Six Nations is happening, the professional club stuff's happening, but I do feel for the guys that like Ruaridh said, that when they're working 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, they enjoy going to their club training on a Tuesday, Thursday night, and a Saturday. It's a release, it's a break away from the stress of everyday living and work. So fingers crossed we can get back up soon.
I think sport is possibly getting affected at the moment, because you can imagine how many young lads and young talent are not getting a chance to display that talent on the rugby pitch, and that goes across a lot of sports because of COVID. So I think you might see a sort of a diverse in class there, so an ability. So it's a shame at the moment. But Sheikhy, back to you, mate.
No, but I think the good thing is the professional sport is buzzing. I mean, we've had a great week as a cricket fan. Test cricket has just had a fantastic week. People are buzzing for it. The Six Nations has started brightly. Excited. Hopefully, we're going to have really big games in
Scotland in the Euros.
And then you've got the Euros, where we'll turn England over again. Whether that's me or my crystal ball again. So, look, I think it's been.
You know why this has happened, Sheikhy?
Why?
It's because the pubs have been shut in Scotland, so we're not alcoholics anymore. We've now started to apply ourselves to sport. So
I don't know if you noticed, mate. I don't know if you noticed, mate, but we've actually just become the top country in the world for drink and drug abuse. So I'm not sure if that's actually the best thing, but I think
we're winning something.
But I think in terms of, I think the pubs, if they're open on Saturday night, I feel sorry for the landlords. I have to admit, the pub landlords out there, I feel for you, because the amount of bevy that would have been drunk on Saturday and Sunday after that victory, I feel sorry for all you boys and girls. But listen, we'll get in the pub soon. We'll be back to normal. We'll be watching Scotland win the Six Nations, as Sheikhy has already told us.
Well, I was just going to say, I was just going to finish by saying, so after we beat the French, turn over the Irish, the Italians to finish the job off, it's a given. It's a given. So Scottish rugby, you know, listen, here's hoping this doesn't come back and bite me in the backside. But we've started tremendously well. You'd like to think, I'll say, Ruaridh, you've said we're going to turn the Welsh over. I never said it. You said we're going to turn the Welsh over. You said, but the French, you've talked the French up, but it sounds like they're a bit hot and cold. I reckon they'll have a cold day that day. We'll turn them over, and then so on. But really, seriously, as a final thought, what's your predictions for the who do you really see? Do you think the French are the favourites, and are we in contention to compete with them, or is there anybody else in the mix?
Sheikhy, if your predictions are right here, you're going to be getting a promotion to Sky Sports in the next month.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm going for Scotland.
Here's what I would say, right?
I'm going Scotland, France, Wales, Ireland, Italy, England are just going to fall off.
Scotland are 4-1 with we're not affiliated with any betting companies, so I will not say what company I'm looking at, but Scotland are 4-1. Sheikhy, remortgage the house, get the money on, we're on it, and let's lay the French. There's 65 favourites, but Scotland all the way for me.
It's a banker.
It's a banker.
Do you know what the most Scottish thing in the world, which could happen? We'll beat France, we'll beat Wales, we'll beat France, we'll beat Ireland,
we'll lose to Italy.
We'll lose to Italy in the last game.
It could happen.
It would just be like,
I mean, you look at the football. Last couple of qualification processes, we beat the big teams and then we drop points against. But fingers crossed they don't take their eye off the ball. I think.
Not anymore, mate. Super John McGinn's there. Didn't you worry about that?
He's got it covered.
Scott McSauce as well.
I think it's bright times in Scottish sport. It's fantastic. Cricket just beat the English a couple of years ago. Great win at Twickenham. Here's hoping the football will be good for us. Great that we've made a big major tournament after so long. So brighter times ahead for Scottish sport. Want to say a big thank you to you chaps, especially to this guy who's taken his time away from the beach in Hawaii and whatever else he's doing, got planned for the rest of the day, for joining us. Ruaridh, I'd say a massive thank you to you, but I don't think you had much planned, mate.
Didn't have much else on. Was just got out of feeding my daughter, so I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
Chaps, appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, and I look forward to getting this out. And here's hoping for a big victory on Saturday against the Welsh.
Here we go. Thanks for having us.
Cheers, boys.
And thanks to the rugby expert Ryan Flannigan.
Top analysis.